It's the McShay Show presented by FanDuel. You thought December was the most wonderful time of the year? Well, you're wrong. The NFL playoffs are just about here, and there's no better time to bet with America's #1 sportsbook. Bet on new and fun markets like to catch a pass same-game parlays, highest scoring game across the Sunday slate, offensive touchdowns in the next drive, and so much more. The app is safe, secure, and easy to use. And when you win, you'll get paid instantly. Plus, get exclusive offers all playoffs long. So download the app today and bet the playoffs with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about the resources and helplines available and listen to the end of the episode for additional details. Must be 21 and older and present in select states. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. It's finally here. It's officially NFL draft season at the McShay Show headquarters. Let's kick things off properly today, Mensch. What do you say?
I'm not going to panic this year, McShay. Just kidding. I'm already panicking.
Yeah, I mean, that's right on brand. Listen, is Cam Ward now the clear leader in the clubhouse as QB1 in the NFL draft? FanDuel is going to kind of give us some insight on that. Plus, will the Senior Bowl become a QB3 sweepstakes of sorts? We'll explain. And then finally, we're going to go through the Senior Bowl roster and use today to draft the top prospects in Mobile at the strongest position. The college football season is in the books. It's conference championship week in the NFL and just 91 days until the NFL draft. Mensch, you good?
I'm good, man.
Tickle me those sweet beats, would you, Tuck? Jim Nagy always says the draft begins in Mobile, right? Well,
yeah.
The draft starts today for us. Let's not kid ourselves. I know that makes you nervous. I know there's only 91 days left, but the college football season's over. It was an awesome season, 12-team playoff, first time running through. We've got changes to make moving forward, no question, but an unbelievable experience. And it was the start of this show for us, the McShay Show, and really got us kicked off. Great appetizer into our entree, right? I mean, this is our bread and butter, if you will, and we appreciate everyone being with us through the bumps, the bruises, the highs and the lows, all of our live shows, the community we're building. It's been a fun ride, but now it's time to get serious. And we're putting together our draft boards. We're going over our rankings. We're watching tape, sitting here, with the clicker going back and forth, watching tape on all these players. Next up in line is the Senior Bowl. Mensch and I and a crew from the Ringer, we're all flying down on Sunday. We're going to be there Monday. We've got weigh-ins. We're going to do a lot of interviews on Monday. Please join us next week. It's kind of like today's the unofficial kickoff for us. We're going to preview everything and kind of get things rolling. But we kick into high gear next week too with the Senior Bowl. We're going to be there all week long. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to have shows following each day of practice. The practices are the best, Mensch. I mean, take people through it real quickly, like from the one-on-ones, the 7-on-7s, the team groups, like how important that process is.
It starts with, for me, being the former offensive lineman, it's the one-on-ones with the defensive line, which is an outstanding group this year. The one-on-ones with the defensive line and the offensive line, just getting them to see them go best against the best. Who competes, who has a good rep, who has a bad rep and bounces back. You see things like you want to see how guys hold up in pass protection if they're a running back, or maybe they didn't catch the ball a lot in college. You'll see them go one-on-one against linebackers in both pass protection and in the receiving drills. The 7-on-7 stuff is great. Quarterbacks, can quickly get labeled as check down Charlies if they're taking everything that's easy and just trying to get through the drill, or they being more aggressive and pushing the ball downfield a little bit. And it's 3 days of that, of just guys competing against each other. The game's great. It's awesome at the end, but it's really those drills of seeing the best against the best going at it, being competitive. That's the reason you want to go down there.
And you mentioned the trenches being kind of the strongest group, and it really is looking at this roster. I looked yesterday, Mensch, you ready for this? On the American and national defensive lines, right, for the Senior Bowl, the two rosters. I had 4 first-round draft pick potential players in the first round and 12 on day 2. That's 16 guys that could hear their name called in the first 3 rounds of the draft. So that's going to be fun to watch. And let's not forget, too, and I think a good portion of what we'll do, we'll interview some coaches. This is never going to be a big interview. We'll bring someone on for a half hour and, talk about how important this offseason is. I don't want to do that. I always fast forward when I'm listening to a podcast. I always change the channel if I'm watching, I do. I'm just going to be honest.
Right.
If we're going to bring someone on, there's going to be a reason. There's going to be something that we've seen that they're doing that we're intrigued by that we specifically want to talk to them about. And probably only a couple player interviews, typically maybe some quarterbacks that I think are most intriguing just to get to know them a little bit. But what I find fascinating is always so valuable to me. And this is our opportunity for the first time ever that I've had it in 25 years of doing television, radio, print, media for the NFL draft, where we can really get into the conversations and not obviously, expose anyone we're talking to, but what are the conversations going on with general managers, scouts, coaches that we're having with them, that they're having within their organizations? I think that's going to be a fascinating part of what we do. The top 2 quarterbacks are not going to be at the draft, right? And it feels like every time we come on the show, there's more news, there's some kind of update. I do think it's important. Let's start things off today, as now the college football season is over. All the bowl games are done. The college football playoff is over. And kind of a state of the union, if you will, at the quarterback position and at the top of the draft. I think it's fascinating. And again, neither of the top quarterbacks, we're talking about Shedeur Sanders from Colorado and Miami's Cam Ward, will be at the Senior Bowl. I should note, Shedeur Sanders is going to the East-West Shrine game, which is taking place this week. He's not going to be participating. He was there basically as a deal made with the East-West Shrine game to help get a lot of their late-round free agent prospects from Colorado to be a part of that bowl and give him an opportunity. And I applaud him for that. There's no problem in that. He's helping his teammates out who have helped him out through the course of his career. But I want to, in a little bit, get to the QB3 discussion and how I think Mobile and the Senior Bowl specifically is going to absolutely play a role. And we've seen it in the past, is going to play a role in which quarterback is drafted 3rd overall in terms of the quarterback position in the 2025 draft. But right now, did you see this on FanDuel, Mensch? Our good partners and sponsors at FanDuel, they keep updating. And I talked to our guys. I talked to Tucker and Connor and Dan. We're gonna create a stock market where we track it over the course, because I think it's fascinating.
I love that.
And really, in the last 3 years, it has legitimately become something that not just us in the media track, but I'm literally having conversations with general managers who are like, "Hey, why is it on FanDuel that all of a sudden Jane Daniels and Caleb Williams are neck and neck for the number 1 overall? What are you hearing?" It's like a jump starter to these conversations, right? And FanDuel isn't they have information. And so there's a reason why, okay? And so I find it fascinating. If we can put up this graphic we have, take a look at this. Is the odds to be the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 draft, okay? Shedeur Sanders a while ago, and again, by next week, we'll start creating a stock market where we can track this. But I find it fascinating that when Tennessee got that number 1 overall pick and all the buzz about that organization favoring Cam Ward over Shedeur Sanders, when that came in, Cam Ward went to the top of the odds and replaced Shedeur Sanders, okay? So that's the first part of it. The second part that I find fascinating, let's keep this up. The second part I find fascinating is that we've already had a change in leadership in Tennessee and in the front office. Rand Carthon was sent packing, And so why has that not changed even with new leadership? And the third part that I find fascinating, you look at these numbers, it's Cam Ward number one overall, the top odds, I should say, at plus 105. If you're not watching on YouTube, I'll keep you up to date. It's Cam Ward at plus 105. So he's got the top odds, highest odds. Travis Hunter at plus 155. So he's more heavily favored to be the number 1 overall pick then Shedeur Sanders, who's at, listen to this number, Mensch, plus 360. That's a high number. And then beyond that, like they're huge drop in numbers, but I do think it's interesting just to see the information FanDuel is getting in terms of guys and where they may slot in the draft. Because obviously, I don't think Will Campbell, the guard tackle from LSU, is going to wind up being the first overall pick. But the fact that he's sixth in the odds here behind Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, then Abdul Carter at number 4, Teteroa McMillan at number 5, and then Will Campbell at 6, ahead of Kelvin Banks, the tackle from Texas. Very interesting to me. Mason Graham is up where he belongs at number 7, behind Will Campbell. Jackson Dart. That's a great way to transition. Jackson Dart, Kelvin Banks Jr., Quinn Ewers, like way off. Will Johnson. I wish you could short some of these. Will Johnson, Michael Williams, Jalen Milroe, James Pierce, Nick Scorton, defensive end from A&M, Luther Burden, wide receiver from Missouri, and Ashton Ginty, the running back from Boise State, round off the group of players that were involved in these odds from FanDuel to be the number 1 overall pick.
What do you think they know? Do they know that Tennessee favors Ward, or do they know that Deion's not letting his kid go to Tennessee?
That's interesting.
There's 2 ways to look at that, right?
Yeah, and I actually, when I was putting this together, I wanted to ask you kind of that question. Even if it's not Coach Prime saying that Tennessee, I've heard a couple places. I have not heard Tennessee being one of them. Have you?
No, I've not heard that team.
I heard some rumblings about Cleveland, right? I'm trying to think. There were a couple other places, and we're going to get Coach Prime on between now and the draft, and we can go through all of this with him. But I do wonder too. I think there's 2 parts to this when you're evaluating like what you're getting. Okay, the first part to me, if you're favoring Cam Ward over Shedeur's the best passer in this class, best pure passer. His instincts as a passer, not in the pocket. His instincts as a passer, when the initial play breaks down and he's scanning the field, his ability to throw with timing, trajectory, layer the ball placement, touch, all of those things are what makes him a potential good starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, does he have elite arm strength? No. It's good. It's not elite. Does he have elite mobility? Absolutely not. It's actually, when he takes off to run, he's not overly mobile, which is surprising as Coach Prime's son. But what he has is an ability to locate and throw the ball more effectively than any quarterback in this class. On the flip side, Cam Ward is not as developed in terms of progression reads, seeing the whole field. He's not as consistent with his ball placement. A lot more frozen ropes on throws that could use a little bit of finesse behind them, those sorts of things. But he's got a stronger arm. He's more mobile. Not elite mobility, but more mobile than Shedeur. And he kind of creates more with the arm angles and the ability to break some tackles and different things like that. So from a physical tool standpoint, I think the team that winds up, if a team winds up taking Cam Ward over Shedeur, it's the traits to develop. Both players, I'll say this, let's just get this out of the way. Both players are absolute dogs. Competitive nature, their will to win, showing up in big moments, like toughness, taking hits, bouncing back. Like both players are equal in terms of some of the intangibles you look at. I have heard that Cam Ward's kind of legendary in terms of leadership, demanding from teammates. You're getting someone who's going to come in and kind of have that veteran approach already. And so while Shedeur's great in that department, I think Cam's like weirdly high level. Okay. So that can all factor in. But then I also wonder too, if you're sitting there in a front office, does it factor in at all? And I'll ask you this question. Do you think it will factor in at all? How much of the circus are we getting with Shedeur? And to no fault of his own, but everything that comes with in terms of like the media attention, the commercials. Coach Prime and kind of the outside noise that can come with that. Not dissimilar from Tim Tebow, right? I mean, there were some places that when Tim Tebow, it didn't work out in Denver, and he was trying to find somewhere else to go. Remember, they had like a press conference about a backup quarterback coming to play for the New York Jets. And like, it was a media frenzy. He was a backup,
Yes.
So I wonder how much that factors in.
It has to. I mean, when you're picking potentially your franchise quarterback, you're making that kind of an investment with potentially an early first round pick. We'll see how this unfolds, but I think realistically, it's probably going to be an early first round pick. You better factor in everything. You better know what you're getting, and you better be ready for it. I will say the flip side of that is, and we've mentioned this before, is that Shedeur has shown that he can handle the circus, that he can be, kind of the eye of the storm when things are crazy and there's a lot of press and there's a lot of attention on a Colorado team that, probably wasn't going to get a lot of attention other than the fact that Coach Prime's the coach and he's the quarterback, and obviously Travis Hunter, but got a lot of attention and he handled it well. So I think you look at that if you're a big market team and saying, this kid's kind of ready. He's tailor-made for this high pressure situation because of some of the stuff he's already been in. But yeah, you bet. I mean, you have to factor in everything. That's why interviews are so important. That's why medical is so important. That's why doing all your background checks, just sitting down with a player. And is there a good vibe, for lack of a better way of saying it? Are you guys on the same page? Do you feel good about, spending all of the hours that you're going to need to spend to be successful with this human being? And do you feel like you can win? Because it's important. All of that is important. We put so much emphasis on the tape, and I think that's the correct way to evaluate players. But it is a wide and a broad process that you have to put a lot of different resources and instincts into.
It's going to be fascinating. It really is. And we look at the top of the draft, Tennessee picking at 1, Cleveland at 2, Giants at 3. All need quarterbacks. Check, check, check. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the graphic that we've built. Patriots at 4 and Jaguars at 5, not in the quarterback market. But right after that, Raiders at 6, Jets at 7, and then down to number 9, the Saints. All of those teams, right? 6 out of the top 10 need a quarterback. There's only 2. And if we're being brutally honest, jumping off point is what? QB4, 5 last year? If you're putting these guys in the 2024 draft class.
That hasn't changed.
And I thought it was interesting too. Tennessee's, was it the president that came out of the organization? I don't have the name in front of me. In the press conference?
Right, and said we're already looking to trade back, or we're entertaining. It pretty much put out the for sale sign.
Yes, but also stated that we're not going to be in the business, something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, we're not in the business of passing on a generational talent. And so immediately I saw Schefter was they're not, read between the tea leaves. I see it differently. Face value, it's, hey, Travis Hunter's a generational talent. We're not going to pass on that. I've been in this game too long, and Schefter has too, but Schefter's just kind of reporting the news. It's our job to then, okay, let's read between the lines here. To me, in a class that doesn't have a quarterback like we had last year with Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, okay, even maybe depending on how you viewed it, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, okay, in a class that doesn't have that quarterback, and what you and I have just recently talked about, building organizations, right? The Detroit Lions, the Baltimore Ravens, San Francisco 49ers, like building from the trenches out, getting it right. So when you get your quarterback, you plug it in. That's the way to go. That's how the consistently good, the consistent play, even the Seattle Seahawks back in the day, right? Consistently good. When they got Russell Wilson, plugged him in, they had everything kind of sorted out for that moment. I look at that and I read it between the lines of come and get him. Come and get him.
Right.
Because we're going to take him. We're going to take him. And maybe we're talking about Abdul Carter, but I think most people would say generational talent is something that you haven't seen in a generation. There's only one player in this class that is a generational talent by those standards. That's Travis Hunter. Have we in our generation seen a player, both sides, that many snaps, that effective as a receiver and a cornerback? That's a generational talent. I think Abdul Carter's phenomenal, But Micah Parsons has been in my generation.
Agree.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
So I think that was, we're open for business. If you don't want to come up and get him, we're going to take him. Because there are some teams that want a quarterback, but it's a rare year where there may be a bigger market for a team to say Travis Hunter's different, special, best thing in this class. Let's give away a little bit to go get him. I don't know. That's how I read it.
You take Travis Hunter with the first overall pick in this class?
No.
Yeah. Look, I think
I take Abdul Carter. If I'm not sold on the quarterbacks, I'm taking Abdul Carter because of everything we've talked about. And I don't want to get into another 20-minute rant about it, but I basically just summed it up. The trenches. Right. Let's build the trenches, pass rushers. Let's make sure we're protecting our quarterback. Let's get dudes up front, both sides of the ball. And I would take Abdul Carter. And you never go broke getting a profit in the draft, and Abdul Carter is going to be a profit. He's going to better your football team in one of in probably the second most important area on your roster.
Right. And so you're not going to trade up to get him at pick one. You're not going to give up another asset or another couple assets to go up and get him. No. I agree. I love him.
I think we're going to see a lot of teams that want to trade down this year because this class is loaded with depth. There's a lot of good players in this draft. There's not a lot of elite players. Okay.
Agree.
So that part's all fascinating to me. It really is. And we went a little longer on it than I wanted, but it's like, this is the most important part, the top of the draft, the quarterbacks and who else could be there. And the messaging coming out of Tennessee and teams like Cleveland and the Giants sitting behind me like, all right, well, maybe they will pass on the quarterbacks. Maybe we'll have our choice, or maybe our guy will fall to us, but we've seen it before. The top two quarterbacks in this class are better than the Kenny Pickett year. I get it. They are. But it's more similar to that year where we were wondering, like, is Pickett going to go way earlier than he should? Is Malik Willis going to be a first-round pick?
Yeah.
All those guys. So I when it's all said and done, if the first two players taken in this draft are Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter in either way, one, two, respectively, it won't shock me.
Nope.
And that means the Giants would be on the board at 3 and have a quarterback that they want. So it's all going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. And the Patriots sitting at 4 would listen, the Patriots at 4, it can work out one of two ways. You either want both the quarterbacks to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want both the quarterbacks to go so that you can get your guy, either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter at 4, or you want at least one of the quarterbacks to fall to 4 so that the teams behind you that we just touched on, Vegas at 6, Jets at 7, New Orleans at 9, one of those teams would be more likely to move up to 4 to go get a quarterback than they would pay that exorbitant price in draft capital to move up to number 1 or 2. Okay. And that would allow the Patriots to move back, get pretty close to the same value in player at 6 or 7 or 9. If Hunter and Abdul Carter are gone, you're desperate to move out of number 4 is my opinion. If you're New England, because you don't need a quarterback. So give me more picks. We're building this roster. We want to take advantage of the depth this year and also try to get a first round or at least a second round pick next year. So that's how I kind of view things as we stand right now. Who is QB3 though? I see that smile. I'm smiling too. Let me go through a little history for you. Okay. I'm going to read off a bunch of names.
Okay.
The similarity, the tie that binds with all of these names, they were not QB1. Only one of them went on to be QB1, but none of them were QB1 going into the Senior Bowl. And the rest of them didn't even wind up being drafted as QB1, but they all they all improved their draft stock with the way things went at the Senior Bowl. Okay. Jordan Love, eventually the Packers draft pick in the first round. Justin Herbert, Chargers first round. Jalen Hurts actually improved his draft stock. We were talking third round. He wound up going early second to the Eagles. I don't know the exact pick. Daniel Jones, like one of the just butcher jobs of all time, drafting him as high as they did.
Don't hold back. Don't be afraid of it.
I never will. Josh Allen. Baker Mayfield is the exception. He wound up being QB1 in that loaded class of talent coming out, right? But he wasn't going into that weekend.
That was
and honestly, like 2 weeks before the draft, that it was shocking that there was kind of rumblings, right? Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Andy Dalton, and Tim Tebow.
That's a pretty good list.
That's why when we start to look at this year's quarterback class, right? And we've got 2 quarterbacks that aren't going to be playing in all-star games, even though Shedeur's going to be at the East-West Shrine game, but he's not expected to participate at all. And we start to look at the FanDuel numbers, right? And I don't think for a half a second, not even a second, a half a second, that Jackson Dart's going to be the first overall pick or Jalen Milroe is going to be the first overall pick. But I do look at those 2 and say, we got an interesting battle for QB3. And some people might say Will Howard. I'm not there yet. I recognize the growth in his game. We talked about it in our reaction show, our live reaction show to the College Football National Championship game. But I think Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe have phenomenal, unique opportunities in Mobile. And I think this is, and the reason it's critical is because they're working with NFL coaches. They're in NFL meeting rooms. They're throwing NFL balls. They're working against competition in NFL schemes to show things that they didn't show at Alabama and Ole Miss, respectively. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget the Tim Tebow year.
Me neither.
Whoa.
I mean, that was a circus. That was a guy who transcended sports. It wasn't, you get people down there who are Florida or Alabama fans, and they come in to watch their players. And you get the big stars that are just college football fans want to come and see that. Tim Tebow was a rock star. Tim Tebow was the Beatles in Mobile that week. I mean, he would take off his helmet after every rep. There was people just taking pictures. It was a circus. It made it tougher to highlight other players that week, which was frustrating. But it was, that's not Tim Tebow's fault, but it was an absolute circus that week. So a little bit behind the scenes on this, right? Kuiper never leaves the Kuiper compound. That was the whole deal. And I joked about it for years, still do to this day. Kuiper's like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to the combine. We got him to the combine 1 year. He's like, yeah, no, that was so much fun. I love this. We should do it next year. Fast forward 9 months later, we start talking about the combine with ESPN executives, and he's like, no, I'm out. I'm not going. So I'm at that point in my career. What is that? The 2010 draft, 2011, somewhere in that range. Maybe 2013. Later than that, but yeah, 2013 maybe. I'm kind of early in the TV thing, and I'm grinding my way up, right? And so all of a sudden, we're down in Mobile. I've been going to Mobile, the Senior Bowl, since I was a senior in college. When we were at Richmond, I went to the Senior Bowl and I went to the combine. Gary Horton, flew me down and just kind of got as an intern, right? So I'd been going for 13, 14 years already. But this time it was like, holy shit. What is it? They said so ESPN sends down the college game day bus. Curtis, our driver, remember? We would go between practices and sit in the bus like we're the game day stuff. 8 screens in the backdrop, camera set up in their little studio. And now, like, what we used to do TV wise before Tebow was at the Senior Bowl was day of practice done. Todd, come on, 90 seconds, instant analysis. They'd send a producer down who would also run the camera, bare bones. I'd do 90 seconds on a quick summary. Here's how the top 2 quarterbacks played and one guy who's rising, right? And they'd ship it off to Sports Center. They'd run that same clip on like 5 different shows. Now, all of a sudden, I'm in production meetings like the Wednesday before with like top executives. They're like, we're sending the game day bus. We've got 5 camera crew people going down. We've got producers, directors, and executive. Like, I was like, wait, what? And so we get down there and it's an absolute circus. It's always like Mobile's the best. It can never leave Mobile, Alabama. They embrace this game. It is it's their baby. And it's what makes the whole situation special. But we get down there and mind you, Mel's never disliked a quarterback. Okay.
That's part of his secret sauce. And we'll have Mel on a couple times leading up to the draft. I don't shy away from anything with Mel, as everyone already knows. But Mel has never hated a quarterback. Mel likes some more and pushes them, but he's never been like, nah, I don't think that's going to work out. So I got Kuiper back in Maryland from at home in the Kuiper compound doing bits with me. He's watching some things on TV and not even getting like full access to the practices. I've done all the tape from the season. I'm at the practices and I'm watching these things. And you know my stance, like, no, I don't see it. I don't see it. I love Tim. And I said it 100 times that year. Tim Tebow's the greatest college football player at the time I had ever seen. Leadership, the toughness, the winning, he embodies everything you want. I couldn't have, I just absolutely love Tim Tebow. My mom and my sister hated me for my stance on it. It got really bad because I was going on these clips and being like, how was Tim Tebow at practice today? But, it's all this media hyping. We've got all these executives and the game day bus and all this stuff has the NFL world and media is there. Like it dropped in Mobile, Alabama, and they come to me on camera and I'm like, yeah, he's very inconsistent with his accuracy. I don't see an NFL passer. He doesn't have anticipation as a passer. His release is and I don't think his brand of football is going to work in the NFL. And then I got Kuiper responding and saying, I love his competitiveness and he's a winner, but he's not saying he loves them. He's playing the good cop for my bad cop. And that's when it all starts. I became the Howard Stern of the NFL draft. And so it was like the hardest few months of my professional career, just in the backdrop, personally, it was difficult, man. I'm not joking. It was hard.
You didn't work with Urban Meyer until years later, right?
That must have been fun. I can tell that story too in a minute. But what I endured was hard. I'm a young guy in this profession. I have not made my way. No, people weren't mad, Mensch. They were enraged, like scary. I get done with that week at the Senior Bowl of all the negative talk and trying, me, good and bad, competitor, he's a winner, he's all these things. But I mentioned maybe he should move to tight end, which he eventually kind of tried, right?
Yeah.
But all the negatives. So I come back from the Senior Bowl and I mentioned Howard Stern because Howard Stern always says the people who love me remember that movie?
Right. Yeah.
People who love me listen for 53 minutes or whatever, or 17 minutes. The people who hate me watch for 2 hours.
Right.
Kind of that's was this negative positive thing that was happening in my career. People hated me. I was public enemy number one nationally and worldwide.
But real quickly, do you know who didn't hate you?
Who?
A lot of the scouts, a lot of the front office guys who were walking by giving you
I became a mouthpiece for them. Enough's enough. Enough's enough. There's a ton of really great football players here and pro prospects and guys.
What are we doing?
Who deserve attention, and only one player's getting attention. So we had that. But I get home, Mensch, back in Boston, and I have letters. And this is the anthrax time. I've got letters coming in the mail. I don't know if I've ever told you this. Letters coming in, hate mail. I don't know how people got my address.
That's fun.
And I'm opening up. One of them was a 3-page letter from a pastor from a Baptist church who was really mad at me. And was the quote I'll never forget was, "I'm praying for your hatred." And so I go through all of that. And meanwhile, people want me on all these shows. So it's good for the career, but personally I'm struggling. My mom's calling me pissed off. She's religious. My sister, they're religious, very religious, and they're upset with me, So I'm going through all that. And so now I got the pro day in Gainesville. And remember, that class was loaded. That was Urban's gem, Joe Hayden, all the passer, it was a loaded class. And so I'm down there, I'm excited, at the pro day in Gainesville to watch all these players and do it. But I also know what I'm walking into. And Tebow's there with his brother, right? And his brother's got to start a production company to kind of document all this stuff. And And so now I'm going in the bowels of the
Right.
I'm there talking about Tebow and his workout and how he's throwing, and it's not all positive again. And when that's all done, and I'm doing Sports Center hits and all NFL Live, all those shows, then when it's done, Tebow's brother brings me into like the bowels of the swamp, into one of the locker rooms, and wants to interview me. So that was uncomfortable. I'm walking out of the swamp. I'm walking out of what is Ben Griffith Stadium, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Mrs. Tebow pulls me aside.
Oh,
Tough one, right?
oh,
And it's like, listen, sweetest woman I've ever met in like a short span of time. You know, like
yeah.
Could not have, as you would imagine, Tim Tebow's mom, beautiful, wonderful woman, like just salt of the earth. She pulled me aside. She's like, listen, I know you're going through a lot with with Tim and the backlash, and I just wanted you to know that I'm praying for you, and quite honestly, thank you. You've provided my son with motivation, so it's a good thing. And so now I'm like, oh gosh, and my mom's mad, my sister's mad, Tim Tebow's mom's not mad. She's praying for me. Like it was hard, right?
Yeah, there's a real human element.
There was a real human element
to all of this.
Yes. And so that draft goes through. He gets drafted in the first round. Josh McDaniels falls in love with him. I'm blown away. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I'm wrong. Josh McDaniels, look at the success he had with Tom Brady in New England. Like maybe I'm wrong. And then he goes and wins a playoff game against the Steelers, right? But then the rest is history, and I can live on the evaluation. But then fast forward, right? And you just mentioned Urban. I wasn't even going to bring this up. I'll just give you the quick story. We can dive more into it later. Urban takes a year off after Florida, right? Before going to Ohio State, comes and works at ESPN. I've been doing all these game day hits and traveling around. The executives call me and say, hey, listen, we know you have a good relationship with Urban. We want him to do a weekly hit for game day, and we like a feature. And so we're going to fly you down to Gainesville. And I was like, I don't want it. Like, to kind of host this thing. Anyway, they talked me into it. It was the right thing for the company. I'm a company guy, so I'm going down there every Tuesday, get down there Tuesday night, stay at a hotel, get there Wednesday morning. And we would tape something all throughout the day. We'd watch tape and hang out. I played football with his son, like became close. But the first time I walk into the house, like this is how naive and stupid I am sometimes, right? I pull into the gated community where Billy Donovan, Urban Meyer, like they all live in this beautiful, very nice community. Need the code. Text my producer, and I'm like, "What's the code to get in?" He's like, "Whatever it is, 31943." So punch in that number. Gates open. I'm driving in. It's literally not until I can still picture to this day. I'm pulling up, houses on the left. I see like a production thing. It's definitely ESPN. It's definitely the house number. Here we go. Going over the little bump to go down the driveway to park my rental car. And not until I got over that bump did it hit me. Oh, no. Shit. Oh, shit. Urban's family is like family with Tim, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this might be uncomfortable. How did that not process in the weeks leading up to this thing? So now I'm kind of like, and it's like 97 degrees in early September and in Gainesville. And so I'm starting to sweat. And so I walk to the front door and I'm like, and door opens up. It's Shelly Meyer. And she said, she doesn't let me in. She shuts the door behind her and says, we're going to have to talk this thing out. And I was like, yes, Mrs. Meyer. And I'm still like younger. I'm like, and so she lays into me. You got it wrong with him. I can't believe he's like a son to me. He's one of the greatest human beings, and you've sat there for 4 months, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I'm God-fearing and Christian. I will forgive you, but it's hard, and I just wanted to get I wanted us to have this conversation. So she finally, after
good for her.
Oh, absolutely. It was great. Giving it to me, lets me in the door, and we proceed. And by the way, Shelly and I are great now. I went down and hung up when they were in Jacksonville, sat in the box with her and daughters, and Tim Tebow and I are great now. We worked together for years. Right. It was awkward at first, but Tim and I are good. Like, and he understands the job I was doing. We've come to a respectable place. But Anyway, I don't know how I got on that tangent, but from that point on, the Senior Bowl elevated absolutely my career, but it became much more of a national big picture thing. And it wasn't because of Tim Tebow and all of that, but it was a good example of how a good week in Mobile and being around coaches and the interview process and what goes on behind the scenes. And that's why I say it's so important when we talk to coaches and scouts about the stories going on. How are they in the room? How are they with their leadership behind the scenes? There's so much that can come from that. So in the longest detour of all time, let's get back to, I know, but I do feel like we're 41 minutes into this thing now. We haven't even gotten to like the second thing I wanted to talk about. And you take the floor because I haven't shut up yet. QB3, the opportunity that these guys have, and I say specifically Jalen Milroe and specifically Jackson Dart. What are you looking for from them? How do you think this will play out throughout the week? What comes to mind when you think of those guys with QB3?
I think.
And is there anybody else in QB3? Sorry, anybody else in QB3 that is in competition that is chosen or cannot, in Quinn Ewer's case, because of injury, needs to recover understandably, that's not going to be there, that maybe it will hurt them, or maybe by not participating, the other two guys will kind of expose some things?
I think that to knock this out real quick, because I want to get back into the Senior Bowl guys, I want to focus on them.
Yep.
Quinn Ewers, I think his stock is the lowest it's going to be in the process right now. I think this is where he's going to start climbing back. I still think he has the potential to be the quarterback 3 in this draft. I feel like a lot of people are writing Quinn Ewers off. I feel like he should have gone back to school. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean that he can't be quarterback 3 in this class. It's not a great class. As far as the guys going down to Mobile, I think that Dart's in the pole position to be that quarterback 3 guy. I mean, I just love his game. He had 52 touchdowns compared to 11 interceptions. This guy's way more mobile than I think people are. 38 starts. I love the way he distributes the ball. I love the way he makes touch throws. I just think he's in a real good spot to shine down there. I think Jalen Milroe has this is the most important week for anyone going in there, because I have some concerns about how Milroe finished the year. But the talent is there. There's absolutely there's no mistaking the fact that this kid has the tools to be a great quarterback, and he has the leadership skills and all of that stuff. Don't get me wrong. The intangibles all seem to be great. So he just had the last 5 or 6 games of the season were brutal. I think he had 3 touchdown passes. 2 of them were against Mercer. He threw 5 picks. The Oklahoma game is a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. He was inconsistent. You look at that, the first half of the Georgia game, I think it's made him a lot of money. There's a reason people talk about it. It was an amazing performance for that half. I haven't seen a lot of that. I haven't seen any of that since then. I haven't seen it consistently over the course of his career. But this is a kid who could go down to Mobile and just wow people with the way he interviews, wow people with the way he spins it. He could have a great week, and all of a sudden you're saying, oh, things just didn't work out in Alabama. Like Saban left and it was a different thing and he didn't have the weapons that some other guys have had. You start justifying it. You start rationalizing.
We've seen that before.
And for that reason, I think that Milroe has a chance to be quarterback 3 coming out. But to me, it's Dart is in pole position.
The tough part about Mobile is you can't have this expectation that just a few weeks ago that Jalen Milroe is going to improve his footwork, his timing as a passer, his ball placement on anticipation throws, all of that. You can't, it's unrealistic, right? But you can, here's what I like to do when I go down to Mobile with the quarterbacks, especially. Picture it as a blank canvas. You haven't seen any tape before, okay? Erase it, just temporarily erase it from your mind and see, okay, they're all in new systems. They all have wide receivers they're not familiar with. They are all working with a new football. They're all dealing with new rules. They're all going through this grind with the media interviews and bouncing from here to there, interviews at night with NFL teams, all that stuff. They're all going through this grind together. So it's like it's a fair platform across the board because they're all having to do it and they're all having to make that same transition. Show me what you have that I can work with if I'm a quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, head coach. This is the blank canvas. Show me what you have to work with. And we know what he has mobility wise. There's don't need to see him as so much as tuck the ball and run for 3 yards. We know what he has. Show me how quick you are in your drops when put in a position. Show me how you're picking up from day. And I love this too. From day 1 to day 2 to day 3, are you progressing? Okay.
Right.
Show me, and this is critical. We'll talk about it during the week. And I don't want to bog down this show right now, but for quarterbacks, the red zone, typically on Thursdays, they do a lot of red zone. Tight spaces, tough decisions. Where's your ball placement? Are you putting it high? Is the ball floating in the middle and putting yourself in a position of risk, which he has done in terms of a turnover in the red zone, which is like a mortal sin? Or are you driving the ball low and making sure your receiver's the only one who can get it? Are you protecting the football? Are you making quick decisions? Because in the red zone, everything speeds up and it's confined. So throughout the week, I want to see those sorts of things. We know he's got the huge arm. We know he throws a great deep ball. But how is he without 7-on-7s, without the defense? Do you have what it takes? Are you showing me promise that there is that there if myself and my staff can unlock it? So that to me is going to be the most intriguing thing for both of the quarterbacks, but especially with Jalen.
I also like to see how they are around these guys. And Justin Herbert, I remember when we went down there, he was coming out of Oregon. There were he's kind of a quiet guy. He's kind of a different guy. He gets down to Mobile, people just gravitated to him. The players gravitated him. He became, he wasn't what you think of as a typical alpha in terms of loud and brash and all that. He was the alpha there in that quarterback class.
He was.
Guys just were attracted to him. And it's easy when you go to school and you're a 4-star or you're the quarterback and you're kind of the ordained leader and people are going to just gravitate towards you because the schools put you in that position. When you show up in Mobile for a week, and these are all really good players, sometimes great players, can you, within the first, practice, get these guys to buy into what you're doing? Can you get them to come along and really kind of follow you? And I thought Herbert did a great job of that. I always like to keep an eye on that with the quarterbacks to see are these guys gravitating towards this quarterback.
The McShay Show is brought to you by FanDuel. There's nothing like the NFL playoffs. It's one big game after another. And you know what? Big games deserve bigger payouts. That's why FanDuel is giving all customers a same-game parlay profit boost every game day during the NFL playoffs. It doesn't matter if you're new to FanDuel or already have an account. You'll score a bigger payout if your SGP hits. I just hit on a 2-leg same-game parlay in the College Football National Championship. Oh, the feeling when you see your account jump like that, it's gold. So let's keep it rolling this week. I'm going to go the AFC Championship game, same-game parlay. Hear me out on this. Josh Allen under 284.5 yards. That's rushing and passing combined. Under 284.5. I just think Steve Spagnuolo, he's going to have a plan. They're going to limit Josh Allen. This is going to be a great game, but I think Josh Allen's going to be a little bit more limited than what we're used to seeing. Then on the flip side, let's take the over on Patty Mahomes, 1.5 touchdown passes in this game. I do think they're going to have to win through the air in this one. I think Mahomes is going to spread the ball out to his different receivers. I think Mahomes over 1.5. So let's combine those and hit on this SGP. So don't watch from the sidelines. Visit FanDuel.com/McShay to get in on the action. That's FanDuel.com/McShay to get a same-game parlay profit boost every game day during the NFL playoffs. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and older and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. Opt-in required. Minimum 3-leg parlay required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com.
A lot of other positions of strength. And I didn't want to do on this show where we sit down, let's go through the best players. Let's go through each position. I want to do something fun that makes it interesting, but also provides like a really good jumping off point to the Senior Bowl, but not just the Senior Bowl, to the draft in and of itself. So I want to go through a few positions. Let's do it with quarterback real quickly.
Yep.
But then let's branch out. I want to do wide receivers, which is not a great group in as a whole, and reflected kind of at the Senior Bowl. But the running back position, which typically has been not a great group at the Senior Bowl and kind of hit and miss from draft to draft, but this is arguably the best running back class in terms of depth of talent we've ever seen since we've been doing it, at least. And it's also reflected in the Senior Bowl roster. And then the defensive line that I mentioned, 12 day 2 guys, 4 first round prospects. I want to do we'll call it draft them. I don't know. We don't have to be like cute and have all sorts of, graphics and fun stuff and music, but I do want to do a quick draft them. Let's just rip through this and give our audience a feel of like, who are the top guys? Who do we like going in? And then I want to revisit it in 13, 14 days after we're done with the Senior Bowl, after we've been down there, after we've come back and watched the game, after we've studied the tape and kind of revisit and take a look. All right, what changed, right? What changed? Mm-hmm. So here we go. Quarterbacks. I'm going to give you the first pick of these quarterbacks. I think I know where you're going to go. But if we're going to draft the top 4 quarterbacks from the Senior Bowl roster, that includes Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Riley Leonard, Seth Hennigan, Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard. So the Louisville quarterback's last name's changed.
Tyler
Shuck. And then we also have a Canadian quarterback who we're getting literally just a couple hours ago. We realized it is on there, but he's certainly not going to make their top 4. So of those quarterbacks, you get the first pick from the Senior Bowl quarterbacks. Who are you taking?
I'm taking Dart for all the reasons I just mentioned. I mean, 38 starts. Again, the touchdown interception ratio is good. I know people are concerned about the system. We won't know until we find out more and see how he does down there. So yeah, for all those reasons. And again, beat Georgia. And he had some tough games. Florida was tough, but he beat Georgia and South Carolina this year. Beat LSU last year. He's played in a lot of big games. Experienced guy. I'm going Dart first.
And I'll go Milroe. It's kind of, we just discussed a whole lot on that. So Milroe would be the number 2 for obvious reasons. Right. Number 3 is where it gets interesting. Who are you taking there?
I'm taking Howard. Look, here's my concern, okay? His completion percentage jumped about 10 points this year. Is it the system? Is the supporting cast? Is it all of those things that have made him drop, or is he getting better? He had some inconsistent games. It's kind of a theme. He had some inconsistent games early in the season, and then I thought he had a really magical playoff run. So is he peaking at the right time? Has he got the right players around him? Tell me a quarterback that's not better in the right system with the right players around him. That's just I think sometimes we overthink that a little bit. I just think I would go Howard third. I think you look at the frame, you look at the mobility, the way he played in the playoff. I know he missed a couple throws, but he was accurate. He spread the ball around. I loved his decision-making in the championship game. I went Howard.
I'm going Dylan Gabriel, number 4. It might be a surprise. Some people would say, well, why not Riley Leonard? National championship game, the run he had. Really intriguing. Size, mobility, right? Intangibles, all those things. I just think as a passer and a processor, Dylan Gabriel, who's undersized, who doesn't have the prototypical frame. I'm just intrigued by him. I'm just as excited to be honest with you, to watch Dylan Gabriel coming off the season he had and the improvements he's made at every stop from UCF to Oklahoma to Oregon. And you called him the Terminator, right? Almost like he has, like the numbers are flashing in front of his eyes, and just the way he and yeah, did he finish with his best performances in the college football playoff? No, he didn't. So I want to see how's he rebounding from that, but more importantly, how's it translating with NFL offenses, new receivers, all those things here in this environment. So Dylan Gabriel would be my 4th.
If he's 6'2", 220, is he in the quarterback 1 mix? I think so.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, that's the kind of player he is. It's the.
And I don't even think it's like if his traits. If it's kind of like Madden, right? Like my son's always, Dad, did you know he's a 93? Or Dad, you think he's so good? Matthew Stafford's only like an 84, and I'm like, okay, but like that doesn't rule the world. That doesn't, a Madden rating. But it's almost like if we could. And I watch the kids here, like they create players, right? And they bump each accuracy. You can bump it up a little bit if you do these certain things. And if you could just kind of bump up a couple of his physical traits
That's what I'm
a
saying.
little stronger arm, a little bit bigger, right? Like I think, I think he has a lot of the things that you look for. So I'm fascinated to see that. All right. Those are the quarterbacks. We've exhausted it. Wide receivers. Let's only do the top 4. Let's just get it kind of our dip our toes in this just a little bit. Top 4 receivers. If you were to draft right now, where would you go at number 1?
It's tough. And I think I have a couple curveballs, but I'll go Utah State wide receiver Jalen Royals, who missed, I think, 5 games this year with a foot injury. So I'm glad he's going to be down there. That's going to be
only
great.
Played 7 games.
Averaged 119.1 yards per game before he hurt his foot. I love him after the catch. Makes guys miss. He's quick. He's got great contact balance. He's not overly big at 6'2", 205, but he can be a number 2 at that size. Makes contested catches. I just think when you look at overall his body of work and his talent, I think he's probably the best one down there.
I don't totally disagree, but the fascinating part to me is there's a bunch of guys competing and I do think there will be movement. I just love going down to Mobile and knowing that there's a cluster, right? None of these guys are first rounders, but there's a whole bunch of guys on day 2. That includes the 2 Iowa State guys, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. It includes Jalen Royals. It includes Alec Amaner, which, by the way, I guess apparently everyone's been pronouncing his name wrong. And we just looked up, like, the way he pronounced it. It's Alec is his first name. We all know that. But I've heard Ayumanor. I've heard also Amenor. But we've just listened to him actually pronounce his own name, which is kind of a helpful tool. And it's Amaner. It's Manor. Okay. So Alec Manor, and then Tez Johnson's another one from Oregon. So all of those guys are kind of in a competition and in a cluster and have a great opportunity here in Mobile to separate themselves. Right. Jaden Reed was an awesome example a couple of years ago from Michigan State, like what he did.
Right.
And he wound up being an earlier 2nd round pick. People were saying like 3rd or 4th. I fell in love with him. He was clearly the best receiver there, and it's translated to the NFL. And the thing in the return game that we saw that week, how natural he was catching it, how quick he was, that is played out in the NFL as well. With that as a backdrop, you've got Royals first. I'm going to go with Manor as number 2. I think he's going to have a big week. You got to remember, this is a guy who's not had a quarterback, has not had protection in the offensive line for his quarterback, which limits the amount of opportunities you're going to get down the field and all that stuff. But what I've seen from this guy at 6'2", 210, he's not the fastest, but he's not slow. Like he like kind of sneaks up on you down the field, tracks the ball extremely well, excellent hands, sneaky vertical, as I said, contested catches, really solid route runner, physical. And in that offense, with that quarterback situation this past year, he had 63 catches, 830 yards, 13 yards per catch, 6 touchdowns. So I want to see him here again, equal platform, equal opportunity, a chance with the same quarterbacks throwing to all these receivers to just showcase what he can do.
I don't hate it. This catch against Syracuse was unbelievable, that one-handed catch.
Yeah.
I will say that I had him number 5, which I think is interesting. of the guys,
these guys?
I've ranked them when I went through. I
like him. Taking 3?
I am going with the guy you didn't even mention, Illinois wide receiver Pat Bryant.
I haven't done his tape yet. I'm just going to be honest.
That's fine. He is. I mean, you can't listen. We should all be honest about that. There are so many players we got to get into, and that's why I'm panicking. If you caught the opening, you want to make sure you got enough tape on everyone. He's the only player, I got this off his website, so I hope it's true, but it's the only player off the Illinois website, only player in the nation with 3 game-winning touchdowns in the final 2 minutes or overtime this year, which I think is interesting. Kind of gives you an idea that he shows up in big moments.
Yeah.
Average 18.2 yards per catch this year. I love the track and adjust. He is, for a guy who's 6'3", his ability to contort his body, to make back shoulder catches, to adjust to that deep ball, take the top off the coverage. I think that's really his superpower. If you're going to talk about what these guys are elite at in terms of their what jumps out in terms of their skill set, that's what it is for Pat Bryant for me. I think maybe people are sleeping on him. I think he could have a big week and be the guy that comes out of there of like, oh, I liked Pat Bryant, but I didn't realize he was that good.
Number 4 is a struggle for me. I can't unthink the conversation I had with a scout about smaller receivers scare me, and then start to think about all the smaller receivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Tez Johnson, like, he is a stick of dynamite, but what happens when you press him? What happens when physical DBs? Durability has been, he's been in and out of games. Toughness, though, we saw in the college football playoff against Ohio State, everyone was getting knocked out of that game. He got knocked out and came back in. But I worry about that with Tez, and I want to watch him this week, getting off the line. He's so quick and all those things. So I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to go with Jalen Noel, Iowa
Interesting.
State. But I fully recognize that Higgins is kind of considered, Jaden Higgins, the other receiver, 6'4", 215, is considered the better prospect. Only two drops all season, excellent hands, polished. But I guess more so than anything, I'm just intrigued to see Jalen Noel, like, with his speed and what he can do. He's more out of the slot, but half as many of his snaps came out wide. You can move him around the field. He had 1194 this year, averaged 15 yards per catch, 80 catches, 8 touchdowns. 1 out of every 10 catches was a touchdown. He runs deeper routes and gets open vertical. That's what I see. Like, that translates to the NFL. 12, 15, 17-yard routes. He runs those and runs them well. So I want to see him this week. And I fully recognize that he wouldn't be, on most boards, the fourth receiver of this group. But I think he's got a chance to elevate himself this week.
I love him. I had him up there too. I mean, he's built like a running back, and he kind of plays like a running back in terms of
he's listed 5'11", 200.
And his toughness over the middle, the way he returns punts, the how he is after the catch, and he can separate. He's got a lot of juice, man. I'm interested to see how he runs, because I watch his tape. I'm like, he's explosive. So I like him. I did go with Higgins. I had Higgins ranked higher than him, so I'll take Higgins here because he's the bigger body guy. And that's what scared me off of Tez too. You know how much I love Tez. I think he's so good and so explosive, but that smaller receiver and how it translates. I think he's listed at 165. Going to be a big weigh-in for him. Let's see what he comes in at.
Put some nickels in his pockets.
Right. So Higgins, for the same reasons you talked about, smooth, catches the ball well. He could take the top off the coverage. You really like that nickels in the pockets comments.
And I just like how the reason I'm smiling is I like how we're so used to each other's shit that you just ignored it. You just totally ignored it. Like, yeah, whatever.
So many tricks.
Running backs. Anyways, loaded running back.
Let's move on.
Loaded running back group. Let's keep it rolling. Man, you talk about clusters. It's a cluster bleep at running back. Like, there's so many dudes, right? Let me just rip off some of the top names. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's a lot of guys that are in that day 2 range, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not going by how the rankings are. I'm going by how they're listed on this roster I'm looking at. And a couple guys that I've already featured is that's my guy. Brashard Smith is one of them from SMU, undersized former receiver. Jarquez Hunter's another that's my guy from Auburn. Then Trevor Etienne from Georgia. Devin Neal from Kansas. RJ Harvey, UCF. That's all on one roster. The other roster, Ollie Gordon II, coming into the year, was considered by a lot of people RB2 or RB3. Okay. Then Kalel Mullings, monster year for Michigan, former linebacker. Damian Martinez, huge year at Miami. A lot of scouts are really high on him and hoping that we don't kind of blow up that spot. So with that as the backdrop, I'll give you the number 1 overall pick here for the Senior Bowl running backs. Where would you go?
RJ Harvey from UCF. I had not watched a lot of his tape before this. Man, he is fun to watch.
Yes, he is.
He had 131.4 rushing yards per game this year, 22 touchdowns, production's all there, 20 catches, which is good enough for me. I feel like he catches the ball fairly well, but first thing that jumped out to me, I was like, patient with great feet and burst. I mean, he is an instinctive runner. He can get in and out of gaps. He can make guys miss in tight spaces. And then when he turns it on, he turns it on. But I think that's probably his best trait. But what I love about him is he's 5'9", 208 pounds, and he runs angry. He's got that compact build where he's stronger than he is big. He's not that big 220 guy, but he runs angry. And the way he finishes runs, I mean, he can just run over guys when he gets into space. I was super impressed with what I saw on tape.
Yeah, I don't disagree. He would have been my number one too. But again, there's not a big gap here, man. Just a reminder too, we're talking all the Senior Bowl stuff right now. We're going to be there all week long, taping some interviews on Monday. We've got the weigh-ins, get prepared. Tuesday practices, Wednesday practices, Thursday practices. As those wrap up, we'll go back to the convention center. I've never had a radio row spot there before. Kind of awkward sitting there doing a show with all these people walking by and ba. But I've done way more awkward before, and I just told you the Tim Tebow situation was the peak of awkward, so I think we can handle it. But please join us. Like, if we're going to cover this top to bottom, and not only just the Senior Bowl prospects, but also like how it plays into the bigger picture of what's going on. So we'll have shows Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. Okay. And so just, keep checking in. And also we've got a whole crew coming down. Like, the Ringer's behind us, man. Truly, like, we've got producers coming down. We've got camera people and production group. We've got people setting up the interviews. We've got folks helping with the social media, with our presence there. We're going to be on YouTube. From what I understand, that TikTok is still in existence for now. So let's rock and roll with it. Our TikTok handle is the McShay Show. So go find us on TikTok. Also, what is it? McShay 13, my Instagram. Your Twitter is the longest
At
Twitter
Scouts
handle
Inc.
of all
Mensch.
time. At Scouts Inc. Mensch. It's MUENCH. I'm at McShay 13. So we're going to have all sorts of like unique, fun content throughout the week, behind the scenes, stupid stuff. I'm sure Mensch eating food and spilling it in the passenger seat of my rental car, all that fun stuff. All right. So number 2, you got RJ Harvey at running back. I'm going to go Damian Martinez.
Oh, come on, man.
Nope.
My guy. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, good. I thought you were going to.
No.
And again, there's not a lot of separation here. I can't wait to see him. I want to see catching the football. He runs hard. He hits the hole hard. He makes, yes. I love the fact he played in the bowl game as a running back and wanted to get, I think he got over 1,000 yards, whatever it was, but like just wanted it. So I love dudes like that. Everyone I've talked to in the league, it's kind of like, shh. Martinez, don't bring him up. I think a good value there. So I'm going to go with Damian Martinez too. Who do you got at 3?
Trevor Etienne. I know he didn't have a big year. I mean, he was ended up being the second leading rusher. He's banged up. The Florida transfer, and the talent. When I see him on tape, I just like the talent. I think he's smooth when he gets downhill. He's one of those guys that, and I love this about backs, he doesn't have to waste a lot of motion to make people miss or to get into a different. He's almost always moving forward when he's changing positions, and I love that about him. He's got a really good feel for cutback lanes. Not as productive as some of these guys, not as big as some of these guys. When I watch the tape, I like the talent.
My Instagram is TMcShay13, by the way. That's how good I am with this stuff. I don't disagree. I like that pick there. But again, I don't see much separation from him. And I go down. This one's hard, the number 4 back. We'll go 6 deep on running backs. There's just too many guys. This one's hard for me, Mensch, because I really want to take – I'm going to go Khalil Mullins. I'm going to go Khalil Mullins. Because I want to see him catching the ball in the passing game a little bit more, okay? I think he has an opportunity to help continue to rise up boards. He obviously had a huge year, former linebacker, physical, tough guy. The fact that he's that productive and savvy as a running back, limited experience, speaks a lot to him. So I think Mullins can have a big week, but there are other guys right behind him. Go ahead.
Interesting. I'm going to go with Ollie Gordon the second from Oklahoma State.
That's like God bless your heart.
No, listen, I love him. I just think that there's other guys I like a little bit more.
Go ahead.
And he hit some monster games. Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon the second. I know it was a down year, but this dude, let's just remember, I love to talk about GM scouts about this too, where they'll say, hey man, I know he didn't have a great year, but you remember what he did in 2023 when things were right. Yeah. And Ollie Gordon, he ran for 1,732 yards 2 years ago. He had 39 catches that same year. I love the way
the Derek Stingley effect.
Yes, great example, right?
Right.
I love the way he catches the ball. I love big backs. He's 225 pounds. We'll see what he weighs in at, but listen to 225. Looks every bit of it on tape. runs hard, can pick up yards after contact. I think he's got good feet for his size. Again, the production in the passing game. And like you mentioned, this guy was in the RB2 mix coming into the year. And I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think he's in that mix anymore. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's dropped. There's no question. But how far? At what point or do we start to reevaluate and say we may be pushing him too far down the board based on a down year? I think he's a guy that could have a big week.
I'm going to surprise you a little bit here, and maybe even myself. I'm going to go Devin Neal next up. I love Brashard Smith, and I really, really, really like Jarquez Hunter.
Yep.
But there's something about Neal's run style. The more I started watching tape, like, I don't know, four or 5 weeks ago on some of these running backs, and Neal was one of them. And just watching his cutting ability, his instincts, his patience, there's something to his game that translates to the NFL. And I'm excited to see him in. The Colorado game was phenomenal. Awesome. I actually went back and watched that tape after to watch him and then a couple of guys on the defensive side for Colorado. Yeah. So I'm going to go Neal there.
That's a great group.
Yeah, that's 6 guys. And yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I like
No, you
Hunter.
don't. That's 6. But who are you taking next?
I think Hunter's in the mix too over Brashad Smith, who I love too. But for me, Hunter, the contact balance, hurdling defenders, running through tacklers, bouncing off tacklers. And he's one of those guys that I'm interested to see. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a average 10-yard split and then ran well top speed, because he just accelerates. The way he accelerates is smooth, and he's building speed. He was in the mix to be in my top group.
And then you throw Brashard Smith into that, right?
Right.
We're talking like 7 or 8 guys, and like
it's just a deep group.
Probably third, fourth round range in a deep group that may have been earlier in other years. Okay. Last one. I want to wrap up on this. Defensive lineman. My goodness, is this class loaded? Like, what are these guys all? I think they're going to play too. That's what I love about defensive linemen, especially, I'm just going to say it, dudes on the defensive front that play in USC was also this way in years past when they had those awesome defensive lines and linebackers. I remember like Cushing, Malaluga, like those dudes showed up and it was like, yeah, they're going to play like Monday or Tuesday practice and be, they get like a mysterious ankle or like a hammy got tight, and they would be there all week grinding. And there's something about it's not just SEC, but like down south, defensive linemen, like the defensive front 7 guys, they just love to compete, and I freaking love that about them. And I'm sure everyone's going to yell at me, you love the SEC. It's not that, man. I look at this list and I started questioning, like, are they really going to show up? Are they really going to play? Like, is Mike Green, I think, will, because it's a great opportunity for Marshall. He's got to showcase that. But I look at like Nick Scorton from Texas A&M, Walter Nolan, Ole Miss, Shamar Stewart, A&M, Kyle Kennard, Jared Ivey, just the way these dudes are wired, I think we're going to have an absolute dogfight, like war on our hands throughout the whole week. And if you're an offensive lineman for these two teams, like an Emory Jones from LSU, Jared Wilson from Georgia, some like Membo from Missouri, like it's my boy Josh Connerly, from Oregon.
Buckle up that chin
Ariante Urshary, your boy from Minnesota. Like, get ready. Get ready. It's going to be like street fights out there. All right, with that as the backdrop, who are you taking first?
Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Yeah, he's 6'6", 290 as an edge, and you worry about those guys just being, he's high cut and he's going to be able to get under pads, and is he quick? He's so explosive. Like my first notes were explosive power, just runs through offensive tackles. He's one of those guys that can just knock an offensive tackle on his ass on his way to the quarterback, sets the edge against the run.
He played 521 snaps this past season. 371 were outside the tackle at that size.
Right.
So it shows that, but it shows that.
Right.
But it also, like, I truly believe the versatility that he can bring is a 3 technique, a 5 technique, a 7, like that versatility is awfully intriguing. You know?
Yeah, I think he's a defensive end in a four-man, like a base four-man front or a four-man heavy front. But he can play anywhere. He's awesome.
I'm going to go Mike Green, your boy.
Oh,
I mean, you have to.
You jumped me.
Well, I gave you the first pick. You had an opportunity. You could have taken him, but he's interesting, man. 6'4", 248 pounds. He's an outside linebacker in a 3-4 base all day long for me. And I know like it's not even about like position fits and schemes and all that. Fine, play him as a 4-3, right defensive end. But 700 of he played 719 snaps last year, which is like an absolute dog. You know how many snaps that is? 719. Nearly 700 of those were outside the tackle too. He's like a wide 9-7. Like he get him outside, let him
250,
rip.
255 maybe.
When I watch him, man, like you got to have counter moves. You got to do. You've got to he's going to have to continue to get stronger and all that. But the short area power he has in his hands, combined with that first step quickness and the short area twitch. And what do I mean by that? Like rushing the passer is, we've talked about it. It's like being a burglar trying to sneak through a tiny crack and like always being on the move so that no one can ever quite get their hands on you. Right. His ability with that short area quickness and the snap in his hands, tackles have a damn hard time actually like getting him and locking him down. Right. And he's slippery, but it's also like with every movement, the outside in moves, the punching inside and then working out back, the club to rip, all those things that he does. He's just, and his body control. And people always like body control I get with a receiver and adjust. Body control with with an edge rusher is about the ability when you are engaged and rushing half a man, because you're trying to work that outside tackle or sometimes outside shoulder or inside shoulder of an offensive tackle as an edge rusher. And you want to do that because again, the kryptonite is a tackle being able to square up, as you know, as an offensive lineman by trade, an offensive lineman where he can get his base underneath him, square up, and then control. Because let's face it, I'm bigger than you, dude. Meet me in like what we used to call a phone booth. Meet me in a tight alley, and I'm going to win this thing. But my job as a 248 pound pass rusher is to never give you my full body, right?
Right.
So it's working the one half of the offensive tackle, working the outside shoulder, the inside shoulder, and then being able to redirect. And then when you do kind of get stuck, because there's always that moment of truth as a pass rusher, in the NFL at least. Sometimes in college you see them run around, run the circle around, run the loop. But in the NFL, there's always that moment of truth where I'm kind of right here, and it's whether it's giving up leverage with your shoulder, whether it's a quick swipe, whether it's a rip or, like there's that moment of truth where you are engaged with half a man and you're trying to bend that edge. The great ones have the body control and the ability to continue their legs moving and driving around like they're like a race car turning an edge, right? And I see some of that in Mike Green, and that's why I'm excited to watch him down here.
I'll say this: I love him. He's bendy, explosive. But how do you pass by Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolan?
I give it to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, man. When I watched, the thing that jumped out to me when I watched his tape was he is a game wrecker when you try to block him with one man, and sometimes two men just ain't enough. He's one of those guys that's quick enough to split double teams, and he's strong enough to fight off of them. I look at that defensive line was obviously loaded this year, and he was the best player on it. Again, I don't know what else to say. The guy can absolutely take over a game and be a game wrecker when he's right.
He's just, my notes, like so disruptive. Excellent production for inside defensive lineman. Excellent.
He had 14 half tackles for loss or something like that.
Yep. 6.5 sacks, 14 tackles for loss, 48 total tackles. I think he's a really disruptive pass rusher. I think he will continue to improve. Classic 3 technique for me. In between the guard and the guard and the tackle, work that, penetrate, get up upfield, disrupt. Really disruptive pass rusher, but an excellent run defender.
Yeah, I
think just because he's so disruptive. And speaking of excellent run defenders, my fourth pick of this group would be Nick Scorton, A&M. Still developing. I get it. He's still developing. But he is a power-based player, and that translates to the NFL. 37 tackles,
100%.
14 tackles for loss, only 5 sacks this year. I get it. He's still got work to do, but he had 10 sacks the previous year at Purdue.
Yeah.
People forget he was a Purdue transfer, had 10 sacks a year before.
He dropped a fair amount at Purdue too.
Yeah. So I'm just intrigued to see. I mean, all 4 of those guys with good weeks at the Senior Bowl will lock down spots in the first round. You know, it's opportunity. It's an opportunity for those 4 guys. And we didn't even get to the 12 guys that are day 2 prospects. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm fired up, man. You know what I'm also fired up about? And you know it, like more so than probably any scouting that we do.
Yep.
You know, we're going to dinner, right? And we're going to go to multiple places. There are multiple places. We will document it all. So don't fear if you're not Noble South, like we'll and you can sling it, and you got good, like real Southern good food, and there's a bunch of places. Now, it wasn't always the case. Mobile used to be like Carrabba's on our Airport Boulevard. I'm not joking. Carrabba's
Panera
Airport,
for lunch, Carrabba's
Panera for lunch, Carrabba's at and by the way, that the one in Mobile might be the best Carrabba's in the country. We love you there, but like not a chain. All of a sudden within, I don't know, last like 7-8 years, like the food got better. The restaurant game upped, you know, the South in general. I have an obsession with it. The South in general has found its sweet spot in the last like 10 years.
Do you remember
Southern flair? Go ahead. Sorry.
Do you remember the Italian place with the chalkboard menu? We got to find that place again. It had all the wines out front, and then it had the chalkboard menu. Always a green flag, man. A chalkboard menu is a green flag.
I think that was over the bridge, though.
It might have been.
I think it was. That's when we were staying over with the Ravens at one of the rest of the hotels right over the bridge. Like not quite in like Daphne area, before Fairhope. But yeah, we're there Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. I fly back Thursday. You flying back Thursday?
Thursday
night
morning.
Friday. So you get an extra. You're always dangerous that mensch night when you build it in. Don't you dare pretend like you don't know what I'm talking about.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Mensch is always.
I just didn't want to get back at midnight and then have to get up to New Hampshire.
Yeah, no, I know that's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it. But Mensch likes to build in that last, like McShay's out of town. Oh, I can breathe. McShay's gone. And then you always wind up, and you don't get into trouble, but like you always find some stuff going on that final night. So that's four or 5 nights, depending on which one you're talking about, to find excellent cuisine. But Noble South is our spot.
I love that place.
No, I mean, we are going to, we've got a reservation. Marissa got us a reservation, contacted the people there. They're excited to have us down. We've already given them some love. We got a reservation. I think 7 of us, everyone coming down in this group. We're gonna all go. I won't mention the night because I'll just keep it that way. All the mensch groupies are gonna wind up showing up.
Here we go.
But I like that menu. It's that so Noble. Good. What do you remember any? Like, what do you want specifically? I don't even have it in front of me.
It's so funny because I usually don't get these things, but the foie gras?
Yes.
That's a thing that, like, first of all, I love deviled eggs. They do deviled eggs.
Their deviled eggs are outrageous.
It's so, like, people are like, oh, deviled eggs? No, deviled eggs. I want to try their pork belly, which I have not tried before, but looks amazing. And then all the supper stuff is always so good. And I've done shrimp and grits. I've done all kinds of different things there, but I always end up getting their Wagyu steak, which is always cooked perfectly. Love the sides, everything.
The red snapper is good too, man. I know we're losing a half of our audience right now, but
we've never had anything bad, I don't think.
The shrimp and grits. Oh,
yeah, the pate. Like, you were the first one to put me onto that. I was like, what is this? It is so good. What I love about it, it's like, it's a lot of the fine cuisine you get in all over the country, really high end places, but like there's always that like little Southern flair, like the cavatelli pasta, right? If I get that in Boston, I'm getting cavatelli pasta. Right. And maybe like there's a cavatelli with lobster or something, but they have the jumbo lump crab with preserved lemon, gala apple. Like, I want to try. I don't remember the pepper jelly. Do you remember that? It's a blue cheese mousse on toast. Oh, no, we did get that. That was awesome.
Did we?
Yep, we got that one time.
The foie gras, it's the chicken liver mousse. It comes in like a little jar, right? Or something.
Yeah.
Like something. All right. So we're going to be there. We're fired up. We appreciate everyone listening. Just another reminder. First of all, thank you for everyone joining us, being a part of this thing. Is little engine that could. We're just building this thing. Like I feel like it's like I said the other night. Like batter up. Like here we go. We're ready. This is our time. The draft is here. Starts with the Senior Bowl, as Nagy will tell you on every tweet. Starts in Mobile, and it does. And the process kind of kicks off right now. And we're going to be there. Shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We will deep dive into all of this. We will talk big picture draft. We'll have some pertinent interviews when it makes sense with guys that have stuff to share. We'll chop them up and edit them when we can and make them get you the best stuff that we're getting. And we'll also have a lot of conversations about the conversations we're having with people in the league. So just a lot of information coming out that week, and you got to be a part of it. Like if you're into the draft and you want to know teams drafting at the top, or you just love the draft like we do, you got to be a part of this week. And we're going to need feedback. We're going to need interaction. We're going to make this special. It's going to be the most special trip, Mensch, we've ever had to Mobile. I promise you that. It's going to be awesome. And make sure you're following us. Mensch is at Scouts Inc. Mensch, right?
Yep.
At Scouts Inc. Mensch on Twitter. I'm McShay13. Our TikTok, we're going to do a bunch of fun, stupid stuff. I'm going to get Mensch dancing. Follow us on the McShay Show and TikTok, YouTube channel, Instagram. I just found out I'm T McShay13. So follow along, be a part of it. We appreciate you being a part of it. Like, subscribe, do all the things that we truly need in order to continue to grow this the way we want to grow it. So we will be back on Tuesday. Have an awesome weekend, everyone. Get ready because we're taking off running on Tuesday with Mobile and the Senior Bowl. But until then, we appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.